Namaskaram, Akka.
Namaskaram, Jahid.
In your own words, how would you like to introduce yourself and the work that you are doing?
Sure. Thank you, Jahid. Namaskaram, everyone. My name is Kadika, and I'm an ISHA Hatha Yoga teacher. I'm teaching ISHA Hatha Yoga for the past 2.5, almost 4 to 3 years now. And I've been teaching mostly in Delhi, Gurgaon, NCR region. And I've also been fortunate to teach abroad in Europe and the United States. Before this, by qualification, actually, I'm an engineer and an MBA, and I used to work as a management consultant till 2007.
Yeah.
Before switching to yoga.
Yeah. So, Akka, if we look about, if we look at I have been seeing some of your podcasts, like you have been doing some podcasts on mental and emotional well-being, and also with some the healthcare professionals, and exploring various aspects that if people face in day-to-day life. So can you tell me what made you, I have also, as we spoke, you had a corporate career and you were fully involved into exploring the world of achievements. So how did this happen, transformation of sharing something so profound and subtle from something very much action oriented. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Anna, I think, if I look back at my life, there are two versions of me. One was before Isha in some sense, and one is after Isha, which a lot of people who've been involved with Isha and, who've learned different practices would say that. But for me, the difference was so stark because if you saw me before 2017, I was a completely different person. I was living a completely different lifestyle. So throughout, growing up, I was fed that regular stuff. You do well in exams, you do engineering, MBA, you get a high paying job, and you will be happy. So I thought I believed all of that, and I did exactly what was expected. But I realized that I wasn't happy in my job. I was working very hard. I was working hectic hours. I was always preoccupied, stressed, but and I would feel a little relaxation on the weekend, but that's it. It was like like Sadhguru laughs that you're living weekend to weekend. So I was like that person. I would wait for Fridays, and I would wait for the 1 or 2 vacations in a year that I was taking, and during my normal day, like the 1 hour that I would go for a yoga class or a session, would be the only time that I felt really happy. I felt peaceful. I felt calm. And so that for me was something that, had started to draw me more and more towards itself. And growing up, I had started to suffer from anxiety at a very young age. In fact, when I was 16 is when I developed anxiety. And initially, I didn't know what was happening. I would just not understand. I would think that, I'm not feeling well. But I was getting anxious with exams, with interviews. All these things used to get me worked up. And it was in my second year of engineering that it got to a point where I had made myself really sick because I had my first panic attack. And it was such a major panic attack that it was the day of my exam, and I had vomited 17 times from the morning that I woke up before my exam. It was in the afternoon, so till from like 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. I had vomited 17 times. So I had to be put on a drip and everything, and that I've not shared this with anyone actually outside of
Uh,
my friend circle, but
uh,
it was really bad. Like that panic attack was a huge wake up call for me. And when the doctor told me that you're suffering from anxiety and panic, I couldn't believe it because I thought I was a young, confident person. How was this happening to me?
yeah.
So it was very scary when that happened. I had to be put on a drip, and then I went to take my exam, and I passed, and everything was fine. But I realized how I made myself so sick because of there was so much stress that I was carrying, constantly thinking about exams, constantly thinking about what I needed to do in order to, come to some idea of success which I was carrying in my head. So the doctor told me actually that you should practice yoga, relaxation, meditation, along with therapy and the treatment that was going on. And so I started practicing again. And I'd learned yoga as a kid, I'd learned some asanas from and I used to practice a little bit, but then you're young and you become busy trying to enjoy life. So all of that had stopped. So because I made myself so sick, I had to come back to it. But still, I was coming at it only for my physical and psychological well-being. I did not think that I have a spiritual yearning in me at all. And I was very young at that time. I was like 18 or 19. So I started practicing again, and then I got better and I became completely okay. I did not need therapy. I was fine. And so then I went back to my usual life. I stopped practicing yoga. I went to MBA school. I was fine. And then, these panic attacks would come and go. Like every 2-3 years, an episode would come up. And then I would remember yoga. But towards the later, around, I think when I was 25, 26, no, actually when I was 27 is when I started to value yoga more and more. So I wanted to do it every day, and I was really particular about my practices that I had to do. And this was before Isha. So whatever yoga I had learned, I would do those practices. And then, I think, like Sadhguru says, even if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, it will work. So
Yeah.
I started practicing, and there was some sort of spiritual yearning that had started. So I started reading more about spirituality. I started meditating on my own. And I remember that in 2016, 2000, no, 2015 actually, I had started doing ISHA Kriya on my own. So, I didn't even know about Sadhguru at that time. I found it on YouTube and I started doing ISHA Kriya. And I did it for a couple of weeks and I used to really like it. Every day in the morning, I would do ISHA Kriya. And I feel like in some way it was a blessed experience because, like they say, when the student is ready, the master appears. So when
Yeah.
in 2017, Sadhguru happened for me, it was an absolute blessing. So once, just I'm going on and on, but cutting a long story short, I had realized, I'd come to that realization that what I valued in life was not that financial success or, that respect that comes from having a corporate job, being in consulting, feeling important. But I wanted to definitely work on myself. So I wanted to take time out and work on myself. And I started valuing that. I started valuing my well-being. So when finally, the teacher training program happened, all of that happened, and you experience something that is so beyond yourself, that is so beyond, you think you know so much, you're so arrogant with your education and your modern upbringing, and you think you're so clever, but you
Yeah.
realize that life, and that you realize that you know so little. So that is what happened with me, that all that arrogance and that resistance that I was carrying, it broke down because I realized I was so insignificant and how little I knew in some sense. And so in some sense, experiencing how insignificant you are and yet how significant you are. So like you're the ocean in a drop and a drop in the ocean. So that experience, when it sort of happened over a couple of months at the ashram and being with Sadhguru, seeing him as my guru. So once that happened, I couldn't see myself going back to what I was doing. I would still be able to do it joyfully because given the practices and the training, you would be able to do it joyfully. But I genuinely felt that I didn't want to do it anymore. Even before, I never believed in what I was doing. I never thought that what I was doing was in any way impactful or it didn't feel true to me.
Mm.
So even now, I'm such a small part of what this is, but I feel like what I'm doing is really meaningful to me, which is important. So